So, let me just find a peaceful and quiet spot. Oh yeah, by the way, since, as you can see, the Express only has 3 cabins, I do believe that sadly we won't be receiving any new cabins in the future. Unless they intend to fix this as well and add a 4th cabin. But that's just a side note I just realized right now. His skill, namely, is not an AoE attack, which hits multiple enemies, but it's a bounce, basically similar to Welt's skill. So if there's only one enemy target, all the bounces will bounce on the same enemy target. Now, for that, of course, obviously, not to be super broken and outshine the single target DPS hunt characters from the hunt path, the damage is not buffed, basically, because the more enemy targets there are on the field, this damage bounce from the skill is amplified based on a percentage of how many enemy targets there are. So if there's only one enemy target, there's no damage bonus, basically, so it's the basic 35% of its attack, if I remember correctly, times 4 or 5, because I don't know if the times 4 is an extra times 4 on top of the normal one, the first initial hit, or a total of times 4, but whatever. I do believe it's an extra times 4. So if there are 5 enemies instead, this 35% damage goes all the way up to 70% damage plus times 4. For the turn, if there are no enemy targets with the gimmick that Anaxa has, he immediately regenerates 30 energy. Which means basically if there's a new enemy wave spawning, none of the enemies have this state, basically he regenerates 30 energy for free. So in modes like Pure Fiction or any other modes in the future where there are enemies heavily spawning in, Anaxa will just be energy battering himself for free. That's another huge pro, in my opinion. The next one, oh yeah, this is a huge one. So, apart from his signature light cone, which is this one, life should be cast to flames, which is obviously his best in slot, as you can see. We also have a great alternative light cone for that, which is this one, the Great Cosmic Enterprise, doing this. This was given away for free, we could superimpose it all the way up to level 5, so yeah. And as you can see, if the enemy target has the maximum amount of 7 different types of weaknesses, this damage amplification goes all the way up to 7 times 8, which is 56%, if my math is correct. So he gains 16% attack plus 56% damage bonus, which is quite substantial. And if we were to go back here, 56% damage bonus versus his signature Lycone 60% is... yeah, it's very similar, but do keep in mind, this his signature Lycone only requires you to have implanted a weakness on the enemy, where the freely given one is based on how much you implanted. So here, if you just implant one weakness, you will get the 60% straight up from the get-go. If you implement only one with the other light cone, you will only get 7%, 8% all the way up to 56% if you implant all 7 weaknesses. Well, currently all 7 weaknesses, I might add that, because who knows if they will add an 8th or 9th or 10th or whatever number of weaknesses. But that's another topic. It just came to my mind. I wasn't really planning to go into that rabbit hole, but I certainly need to mention that, because who knows what's gonna happen. Okay, next point. Next pro, and yeah, in my opinion, it is the biggest selling point for Anaxa, that he is the best in slot unit next to the Herta, in my opinion. But objectively speaking as well, because the Herta and Anaxa both erudition units, and both of them enables quite funny shenanigans. First off, if you may or may not know, the Herta as an erudition unit has this talent called Message from Beyond the Veil, which does the thing where When entering battle, if the team has 2 or more addition characters. Important to note, 2 or more addition characters means that 2, Dihurta counts herself as well. So if Dihurta and Anaxa is on the field, it basically enables this talent, which increases damage, critical damage by 80% for the entire team. Okay? 80% crit damage for free for the entire team if Dihurta and Anaxa is in the team and on the field. And also, Anaxa has an interesting gimmick, whereas as you can see from his talent, Imperative Hiatus, whatever it is. Based on the number of addition characters in the team, one of the following effects will be triggered in the current battle. 1, which is basically Anaxa himself. If he is the only addition character, his own crit damage is increased by 140%. Which is insane, by the way. But if there's 2 or more, which means that if there is Dihurta and Anaxa in the team, all characters in the team has their damage increased by 50%. So basically, if Anaxa and Dihurta is in the team, just from these talents alone, the entire team gains 80% crit damage and 50% damage increase. For nothing, for free. Which is kind of a big deal. Also, let's not forget the fact of the previous point, Anaxa gains free energy, which means he can ult quite frequently. His ult hits all characters, and guess what happens when Anaxa ults very fast, non-stop, even if it doesn't hit all that much, and he uses a skill that hits multiple enemies, it charges Dihurta, because Dihurta loves it when multiple enemies get hit at the same time. So, and if Dihurta is getting charged by Anaxa, probably faster than anyone else currently, or just as fast as, you know, like a 4-star version, for example, Baby Hurta, then yeah, that's super nice and super good. Okay, I do have some mixed opinions as well. One of them is the wind element in question. Well, obviously, this is not so much of a big deal because Anaxa implements weakness types, so he basically can do whatever. Okay, and the light cone is okay, nothing groundbreaking, yeah. His signature light cone, as I mentioned before, is something. But, yeah. We do have the free one, so it's good to have, but if you don't really necessarily plan to hyper-invest into him, then I think his signature light cone can be ignored, and it should be ignored. Okay, here comes the cons. So, let's get into the cons and the concerns. The first one is the control resist that its ultimate text says. This concerns me for multiple reasons. So if we check his ultimate, near at the bottom it says if the target, the enemy target who he ults, does not have crowd control or control resistance, they are unable to take action in the whatever it's called state. So basically, if that translates to if the enemy has no control resist, then they will be frozen, aka in that galaxy shiny colored marble, and they will not be able to take action. If they do have control resistance, typical for bosses and elites, then they will be able to take action and they will be not pseudo frozen. Now, under normal circumstances, I would be like, yeah, that seems normal and reasonable. You don't want elites and bosses and, you know, high-end in high-end game modes or in story modes, the main antagonist to be frozen with disability, and it would be too broken, too abusable, yada 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 yada. But on the other hand, we've seen how Hoyo tends to do things, and when there's text like this specifically in a kit, that also raises some questions. Are we gonna see non-bosses and non-elite, basically regular everyday mobs, have more, or should I say more mobs, have control resist in the future? Because if so, that also implies that other mechanics might not work as well. And this might be a new trend where, you know, skills, ultimates, and, you know, gimmicks in general for certain characters might have this sentence seen more often, that if the enemy target has no control resist, then XYZ happens. If they do have control resist, then you can just ignore the text, basically. He is very SP negative, just like D-Herta and most erudition characters who uses skills and basically just do AoE damage. But unlike D-Herta, who can at least get some SP back every time she ults with her signature light cone, Anaxa, not even with his signature light cone, can do that. So we have to keep that in mind if we are running D-Herta and Anaxa at the same time, especially if you are running D-Herta and Anaxa without D-Herta's signature light cone. Next point. It's an obvious one. As a free-to-play player, but in general as well, you are more likely than not want to spend as less pulls and J's as possible and only pull for the best value for your buck characters. Or maybe you can just disregard what I said and maybe just it's my opinion. You pull whoever you want if you like the character, if you just like it for the looks, if you don't care about endgame content, if you don't care about efficiency, if you don't care about, you know, zero cycling especially, then yeah, you can just pull whoever you want. But if you care about efficiency and getting the most value for your pulls, especially if you want to stay free to play and not, you know, swipe, then yeah, in my opinion, pulling for the least amount of characters as possible or necessary to, and still clear endgame contents is the best way, even if it's sometimes a little sweaty. Now this is a huge one. Anaxa and everything else that comes with it gives me huge Silver Wolf deja vu vibes, like back in 1.3, I think, when Silver Wolf was introduced. She was gonna be this, oh my god, so broken character, the new meta, where you can implant weaknesses. And I am very, very, very much afraid that everything is gonna repeat itself. And historically, we already know what happened. The introduction of Silver Wolf, not only weakness implants was introduced, later on, ignoring enemy weakness types was also introduced, and Silver Wolf become obsolete. Like nowadays, you don't even use Silver Wolf with Acheron anymore, or rarely, or if hardly ever, if anywhere, you use Silver Wolf nowadays. Like, can someone give me an example where Silver Wolf shines nowadays? And in endgame modes, for example, where does Silver Wolf shine? That's one thing. Anaxa's gimmick, the weakness implant, is one-on-one Silver Wolf. The free light cone given to us is also one-on-one Silver Wolf. I already mentioned we got what free light cone we have with Anaxa. But for those who don't know, let me just really search for Silver Wolf. And back in the day for Silver Wolf, we got this light cone here before the tutorial mission starts. And objectively speaking, back in the day, this free light cone given to us was objectively better than her signature light cone was. Nowadays, I think Anaxa's signature light cone is better than the freely given one, but it's still not a huge difference. Thank God that, you know, we need to pull for it. And yeah, that's basically it. So not only can we, based on what happened in the past, assume that Anaxa is gonna, one, fall off really hard, really fast, just like Silver Wolf. Not only we can assume that after Anaxa, Cypher, Hayasan, we can expect, especially with the upcoming collab with Fate, between Honkai Star Rail and Fate, that more characters such as Boothill, such as Firefly, such as, you know, characters that can completely ignore weaknesses or don't care, to be more precise, what the enemy weakness type is, are gonna be introduced. And when I say characters like Firefly and Boothill, I do not mean like super break characters. I mean characters that can pseudo ignore what the enemy weakness type is. I need to emphasize that before people think I am implying that super break is gonna come back. No, I'm not implying that. In fact, in my opinion, DOT is the next thing that is gonna come back to being meta, but that's just my opinion, and you know, what do I know? Okay, yeah, after Anaxa, this is, yep, I even said that before I was scrolling down. Oh yeah, and the biggest con. After Castoris, I'm just gonna call her Rice. After Rice was introduced and the global passive was introduced, there has been a new bar set in my mind. Whereas if the character has no global passive, it's already a 70% minus in my book, kinda, if I wanna pull him or her or not. Just based on the fact that they introduced this global passive thing, everything, they set a new bar. And I don't care if people ignore this fact, they don't acknowledge it. If they pretend that everything is still the same, it's their pools, it's their money, it's their choice, as I should say. But for those who want to think about this a little bit more and try to predict the future and, you know, save money and pools and energy, time, whatever, and whatnot, then yeah, it's a huge deal. So with that said, and everything into consideration, my final conclusion is I will spend a maximum of 30 pools. And the reason for that is, yep, originally, just so you guys know, originally I planned to skip Anaxa altogether. But after thinking, you know, sleeping on it and thinking about it a little bit, I'm gonna give Hoyo the benefit of the doubt that they won't repeat the same thing as that happened with Silver Wolf. Also, the 30 amount is 30 because after this, I am going to skip Hyacinth and Cypher. And with the current amount of pools I have and just a rough estimate of how many J's we will gonna get until the next character with the next global passive will potentially come, in my opinion. If I spend 30, I think I'm gonna get enough Jades and pools with rewards, events and whatnot that I could have a total amount of 180 pools, which is the guaranteed amount for a character in the worst case scenario. So with that said, here is your full list. I don't think we have any pity. Yep, we got our global passive. Before that, we got Triby. Yeah, Rice came home in 10 pulls, luckily. So let's see if we are gonna be rewarded for being smart, or are we gonna get, you know, royally screwed. Well, let's go. 10. Okay, 2 downs, 20. And here's your last chance, 30. Okay, Anaxa is officially skipped.